Hi everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. As we're creeping into, excuse me, some astrologically significant times and cosmologically and astronomically up in space, planetary alignments, as we're coming into, in more intense energies with Mercury Retrograde, I've noticed a real increase and an uptick in the energy, the very frenetic energy that's zooming around right now. We just had our lunar eclipse. We've had a solar eclipse recently and a lot of activity. So as I've walked today, I get a lot of messages when I'm out walking. I live in Colorado Springs, and so I'm very fortunate to be able to walk daily and see the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, Pikes Peak. So as I was walking today, it really occurred to me as I was listening to an oracle reader and taking in the information and synthesizing that with my own experience of what's actually happening in my life, I was really understanding that it's very, very problematic if we go to astrology or tarot or oracle or some sort of divination during Mercury retrograde, that be very careful, perhaps be the leader of your own discernment in listening, because I know for me personally, it's my North Node that I listen to the readings that they resonate the most. However, my sun sign, my sun sign, my Mercury, and my Venus. I mean, I've got a bunch of the same. So excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm having a flake out moment right at the moment. It doesn't matter. What the deal is that I do not listen exclusively to my sign. My sign is Gemini. However, my North Node is Aries, and I have to listen to Aries more frequently because that's what resonates. And I really do abide by the idea that if I'm going to listen to something, I go by what I'm drawn to, not necessarily just anchored in on, I've got to listen to Gemini or, Aries. My Venus, as I said, I've got several that are all the same. So, and it's very important to get a proper birth chart, to understand. You need to know your time of birth and, etc. So it can complicate things if we don't know precise information like that. And then during these periods, especially during Mercury retrograde, that's what really came to me today, is that I'm listening and things are related to events that happened a year ago, and they're bang on for a review of what's already happened. And that during this karmic return cycle with Mercury retrograde, then it's very freaky and froggy for behavior that happened a year ago, some of it 3 years ago in my life personally. I'm not saying that that's the standard for everybody, that during Mercury retrograde, it's 3 years back exactly. We have to be the leaders of our own discernment. And sometimes, unfortunately, whenever we're listening, we can come across readers or people who work divination. It's not just related to a specific spiritual practice. It's anyone that's doing divination of any kind. If they themselves are having a tough time with Mercury retrograde, it can affect how they're receiving their information. And so if we're not really careful when we're listening, we might get very locked into specific signs. We might get very locked into understanding that a soulmate and a twin flame and a divine masculine and all these terms that are thrown around, that it's fine that they're thrown around if we are the leaders of our own discernment and we can really take in and accept the fact that it may be that one reader uses divine masculine in a very different way than another, and that twin flame means something to one reader, whereas soulmate means something else. And karmic, we're pretty clear usually that karmics are, the not so pleasant part of this exchange. However, we don't really talk too much about that karma can also be good. So during these Mercury retrograde cycles, I did understand too that some of those readings that I've been listening to, because they weren't fitting, and it dawned on me that it's the reverse, because some of it's the Mercury retrograde that it's just kind of wonky and it's backwards, and cross reading can be very problematic without really understanding all the different energies. And it just so happens my personal story is that there's a bunch of different moving parts with a bunch of very strong energies that have a whole lot to say, and carrying baggage from, previous lifetime or previous timeline or wherever it comes from, baggage from other dimensions, we're all kind of working within those understandings. And so when we're dealing with these really huge energies, and they're bringing in energies that during these retrograde cycles, when, spiritual jail is kind of in session and we're being brought up for, hey, we need to talk about this. It's a Maat kind of experience, and we have to answer to things. And if we're standing in a position where we feel really good about our decisions, then our karmic return shouldn't be anything scary. And it really shouldn't matter whether somebody calls the person that's, throwing stuff at us a man, a woman, or otherwise. It only matters that how are we recognizing the energy when it shows up, and then listen to those readings, understanding that track the timeline on the energy itself, and you may see some trends. For me personally, these specific names are not as important in these energies. The trend and the theme of those energies is what's really more important, rather than understanding each individual named person, from my life. It's a whole collective of just really, unacceptable bad behavior that, choices that are made, we all have to answer to that at some point. And not a one of us, I'm sorry to say, for those that like to believe that digging in the Akashic Records will give you a buy-in to somehow cheat, it's not true. That we like to believe that we can figure out how to outsmart divinity and cosmic law and cosmic court, and we want to pretend that our cosmic felonies aren't really that. They were just cosmic misdemeanors, and that's just not really accurate. It's not true. And we may have gotten through quite a few Mercury retrograde cycles where we didn't really pay the piper, and that's energy that's stacked up in the quantum field that it might be browsable in the Akashic Records. However, it's not advisable to do, unauthorized browsing of other people's energy, whether you're, directly doing something in their face or you're doing it behind the scenes in some sort of, gang stalking type thing. And it doesn't have to be a formalized, going to see a hoodoo practitioner or, some sort of person that's doing ill intent. I'm not against magic. As a matter of fact, I live my life on magic and by the principles of magic, which are running the universe pretty well. It's pretty magical. I'll go with, understanding those laws and operate there, and have great respect for the fact that I live in Colorado Springs, and we're going to go from having severe fire threat to an almost zero humidity, single digit humidity, severe fire threat, places on fire everywhere around me a lot. We're going to go to thunderstorms this afternoon with hail. Tomorrow is going to be blustery, windy, and bringing in more snow, a cold front, and then snow, intense freezing weather. So, we have to have respect, at least I do, that I'm not going to say that my power within me is any greater than that, because what runs all of that is what runs me. And my understanding of what's, life and life sustaining is Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is both masculine and feminine. So how's that energy showing up in me? And how can I best resonate with that so that I can deal with all the human beings who are also trying to do that? And some people are just not as well regulated or balanced or able to handle when they don't get their way, or when they've been able to get their way for quite some time, and all of a sudden they're left with, what do you mean I have to, pay back all this that I kind of co-opted or manipulated? And again, it's not about going to necessarily to a specific, witch doctor or something. I'm not disparaging anybody's practice of magic. What I'm saying is that, if that's a formalized thing, people are going with harmful intention, that can really screw up those readings, by the way. It can really screw up those readings when there's that kind of, intention being thrown forward. But more importantly to know is that it isn't just limited to someone sitting down with the Book of the Dead. It's a matter of that if groups are gathering, 3 or more are gathering, and they're talking, garbage, and they're holding your name in their mouth, and it's a very unholy experience. And heaven forbid if they're doing, things behind the scenes to really tear down, take down, or destroy another person at whatever level it is. Those are cosmic felonies or cosmic misdemeanors. Which do you want to have on your record? I'd like to have, a pretty clean record, because when that balancing happens and there is that distribution of equality and, karmic return, Libra-ish stuff, and Mercury retrograde, I really want to not have to have that be a horrible experience. And so for me personally, I've been very fortunate that this particular season, I'm just able to really hear it, see it, and get visions of the struggle that people are going through relative to my specific storyline. However, it's a collective. It's a whole collective that, yes, individual faces in my story, and they'd be individual faces in your story, and they're very specific to your timeline and your reality tunnels. However, it's a whole bandwidth of people that are just deciding badly right now. And, when you're given the choice to, do you want to go forward, picking up with better integrity and do this in a kinder, gentler, more respectful way and truthful way? Or do you want to, run and hide? And because we're not going to outrun snow. I mean, I can complain and I can gripe and I can send up, all kinds of angry to God or whomever, to Mother Earth or to, Colorado, and say it's their fault. I had plans this weekend, and it's still not going to do any good. That's just the plight of human beings, that we have to come here and understand that we're not in charge. We're in charge of our lives, and we're given as much license to do that and run that program unchecked, it seems, right up until 11:11. That's decided for us that, oh yeah, the scales are balancing and Maat's coming in. So that's what this time is. And just be very careful as you're navigating that time, especially if you're a light worker, a chosen one, an elect one. If you're one of the specialists, if you're one of the people who really has light work to do here, this is especially challenging time. And all that energy that's being thrown around during this cycle and any other, be very careful. Be the leader of your own discernment when you're listening and trying to navigate those problematic relationships and connections and energetic bonds, and cut as many of them quickly as you can, especially now that if there's doubt in your mind about whether you need to or not, go ahead and cut that cord in your mind and put some prayer on it, or put some, pipeline request to your team, whatever you call all that, whomever, whatever, and whatever practice it takes that's holy and sacred, and isn't going to call in, demon-y type energy, because right now you'll get it. So be very careful and mindful as you are stating, your intentions going forward, and listening to readers that are going to accurately guide you. And if it just doesn't seem right, put a pause on it at least, and just say, I need a minute to see how I feel about that inside. And, your body will tell you this is either or it's And when we get kind of muddled, that's that energy out there, because there's not a single thing inside of you that doesn't already know what's right and true for you. We're not taught very well how to get in touch with that. And we are oftentimes turned away from using that a whole lot because it's scary to other people who don't want to face the music. We all have to face the music for whatever we've done, whether we've been mass murderers or not. And it looks like here on earth that we get away with stuff, and that's not fair. And that's not fair is just one of those things that, yeah, I don't like that. And it's not fair. It shouldn't happen to me. I can't explain, 100% of everything to anybody else. I just know that I have to explain it to me and come to the resolution that it doesn't matter, Kate, whether you like it or not, whether you had plans for, a picnic, a whole basket to be consumed by you and the love of your life that you don't have. It doesn't matter what your big plans were. There's impending weather, and you got to pay attention to that, and don't be so lofty and spiritual and so holy that you don't prepare for that, and live life and be engaged, and yet be aware that Mother Nature's in charge of this show, and you're going to change your plans and sit down and shelter in place, or brave it and then wonder why I'm on the interstate, perhaps snowed in somewhere, wearing capris, because I started my journey back there and was ignorant as hell about how I was going to go forward. And I don't like getting caught in those situations, because it isn't just getting stuck physically and hoping for rescue to come and get me off the highway. That's a whole lifestyle that, no thanks. I finally made my way out of that, and I'm certainly not going to do that anymore by getting tripped up in readings or messages, or even my own intuition getting bogged down. That the minute I start to feel confused, that's the minute to say, yeah, I got to put a pause on that, take a deep breath, and change my focus and, you know, come back to it, and it'll be there. And if it's not, there's a reason it's not. And just, we have to keep sitting with it and that discomfort of, but I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. It's okay. It'll come. Just trust that. And I hope this has helped. I'm going to cut this off now, and thank you very much for your time. I hope that you have a beautiful day, whatever part of the day you're in. And remember, baby, get inside, because you're divine. 1444. It's totally, totally fine. Be well, and I'll see you next time. Bye, friends.